you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Fleming?
Here.
Mr. Gill?
Here.
Ms. O'Connell? Here. Ms. Wilbanks?
Here.
Ms. Tolles?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Dr. Pritchard?
Here.
Chair Sharp?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. I would like to remind you the copies of today's agenda are located at the right front podium if you need them. If you wish to be a speaker on any case that is on today's agenda, please fill out the attendance speaker's card located at the front podiums. Once you have filled out the card, please bring it up front and hand it to one of the DPD staff members located at the left podium. When the agenda item is called, you will be given an opportunity to speak. At this point, I would like to read your conflict of interest statement. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The member shall vacate his or her seat during deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for a recusal for the purposes of maintaining a quorum. I would like to now get approval of our minutes from the past meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair. Second.
Okay, we have a motion. I hear a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion amongst our board members? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. At this time, we'd like to find out if we have any director remarks.
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
We do not, okay. Mr. Ragsdale, may I please get a secretary's report for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not have a secretary's report, so I will go into the procedure. At the beginning of today's meeting, we will establish a consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or on the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we will move on to the regular agenda. For each case on the regular agenda, the DPD planner will give a presentation. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation and any testimony from others who support the application. The applicant and supporters will be given a total of 10 minutes. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Next, the opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes to present their case. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Finally, the applicant will then have a 3-minute rebuttal period under the same rules. Following all the presentations and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask if the board members have any additional questions of anyone who spoke. Then the chair will close the public hearing portion of the case, entertain a motion on the matter, discuss, and then vote on the application. If an applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing portion of the case, or if a board member wishes to hear any additional testimony from any party for additional clarification, a motion will need to be made along with a second and then a 2/3 affirmative vote of the board is required to reopen the public hearing portion of the agenda item. If the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and the opposition will be allowed an equal amount of time to provide additional testimony. After the additional comments, the board will close the public hearing portion of the case and deliberate and then take a final vote. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a case, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card. These are available at the front podium. Speaker's cards are not required of applicants since their names are already part of the record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. The board is a supporter of community involvement, and we certainly welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off work or adjusted your work schedules to be here today, but we ask that your comments please be made within the time frame allowed. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive so as to make the most of your side's 10-minute time allotment. Lastly, I'd like to ask you to silence all your cell phones so as not to interrupt or disturb anyone during today's proceedings. With our procedures now explained, I would like to introduce to my right Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read items 1 through 17 as the consent agenda. Once the consent agenda is read, if you wish to discuss one of these items individually, please come forward and give us the item number and we will pull the case. We will then vote on the remaining consent agenda items as one vote, and following the vote, we will hear the cases that were pulled individually. Ms. Wilbanks, will you proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1, case PD 22-19 and Eads. The request is a plan development to allow a mix of residential and open space and utility service area uses on approximately 80 acres at 11945 U.S. Highway 64. Staff recommendation is a hold for 1 month. Item number 2, case SUP 22-28 in Whitehaven. The request is a special use permit for a bar at 1482 East Shelby Drive. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 3, case SUP 22-29 in Raleigh. The request is a special use permit to allow a dormitory at 3016 Old Austin P Highway. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 4 has been withdrawn. Item number 5 has been withdrawn. Item number 6, case MJR 22-56 in Whitehaven. The request is a major modification to add 15 feet to the height of an existing CMTS tower at 4723 Elvis Presley Boulevard. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 7, case MJR 22-57 in the Medical District. The request is a major modification to allow indoor storage for the existing buildings north of Linden Avenue in the Linden Yard PD at 708 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval. Item number 9, case MJR 22-59 in Southeast Memphis. The request is a major modification to increase the allowable height of a structure from 35 to 75 feet at 7126 Riverdale Bend Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions, and we do have a friendly amendment which will be read into the record. Friendly amendment.
Yes. Friendly amendment is to change condition number 2C, which at the end of that reads, the minimum setback may be reduced to 30 feet, and that will be changed to 20 feet.
All right, item number 10, case MJR 22-60 in Arlington adjacent. The request is a major modification to allow an indoor contractor storage at 10545 U.S. Highway 64. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 11, case S22-42 in Raleigh. The request is a 50-lot single-family attached subdivision at the parcel north of 4950 Stage Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 12, case S22-43 in Sea Isle. The request is a 2-lot major residential subdivision at 1190 Haney Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 13, case SAC 22-08 in the airport adjacent area. The request is to close and vacate Shepherd's Tree Street north of Killarney Avenue. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 14, case SUP 22-30 in downtown. The request is a special use permit for a hotel at 122 South Main Street. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 15, case Z 22-10 in the airport adjacent area. The request is rezoning of plus or minus 58 acres from residential single family to employment at 5351 Airways Boulevard. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 16, case PR 22-01 in North Haven. The request is a revocation of the plat known as the North Haven Community Center General Plan at the southeast corner of Watkins Road and Robertson Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. That is our consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. The items on the consent agenda will now be voted on with one vote, subject to the recommendation of DPD. If the consent agenda is approved, then only item number 8 will have full independent public hearing. By voting on the consent agenda, each board member is affirming that he or she has read the staff report and agrees with its findings and, where applicable, its recommended conditions. Can I get a motion, please?
Yes, ma'am. Move to approve item number 1, case PD 22-19 as a hold. Item number 2, case SUP 22-28 as a hold. Item number 3, case SUP 22-29. Item number 6, case MJR 22-56 as a hold. Item number 7, case MJR 22-57. Item number 9, case MJR 22-59 with the friendly amendment. Item number 10, case MJR 22-60. Item number 11, case S22-42. Item number 12, case S22-43 as a hold. Item number 13, case SAC 22-08 as a hold. Item number 15, case SUP 22-30. Item number 15, case Z 22-10 as a hold. And item number 16, case PR 22-01.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, and we have a motion. Is there any discussion amongst the board members? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're ready to go to Dr. Pritchard for the regular agenda, item number 8.
Agenda item number 8, MJR 22-57, correspondence to PD 06-359, medical district adjacent.
It's number
Major-
9.
No, it's 9. It's 9. They're out of
Oh,
sequence.
wait.
No, but we can't find, I can't
So we're
find
going
that.
to 9?
9.
It's because of the numbers that I
Oh,
told you.
that's right. Agenda item number 9, MJR 22-58CO, correspondence to PD 04-315CC, Cordova, major modification to the outline plan to increase the maximum number of total lots from 176 to 200, decrease the minimum lot size from 22,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet, decrease the minimum lot width from 110 to 90, make other related changes to the outline plan conditions, and update the conceptual site plan at the northern terminus of Roland Road. Staff recommendation is rejection.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Yes, ma'am. Josh Whitehead, Birch Porter Johnson, 130 North Court.
Thank you. Is there any opposition? The opposition, okay, okay. All right, would you present us the case, please?
Yes, ma'am. I think we're having just a bit of a technical difficulty with this projectors. So one moment, please. Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks. So,
Madam Chair, we cannot seem to get the projector to work, so if all of you have your staff reports, we have some hard copies here, so I think, but I've got some additional hard copies, so let me see. I know some of you have your computers, so we'll keep working on it, but in the meantime, I think let me get you the staff reports and we can proceed with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as all IT people tell you when you call them, turn it off and turn it back on. So that's what we're trying. We'll see if that works, because I think it would be good to have the presentation. If not, of course, we can always, make do with what we have. But let's try that. We have some time, so we'll reboot and see what we can get.
Okay.
One vote.
I have to kind of near the top.
I didn't have to be on his case.
Yeah, if you think it's better to wait, yeah, I can do that.
And Madam Chair, we can also print hard copies of the presentation, because there are a few more things in the presentation. So if we want to wait just a few more minutes, we can print those copies of the presentation if we can't get the projector, if you'd like.
Okay. Be looking at it.
Yes, a long time ago.
Theirs, and then mine.
Oh, here's IT. Does, doesn't he? Yeah.
He said somebody in the back.
Well, this projector doesn't work. It went out. Okay. At the council meeting.
So
We
what about
can't get that screen to switch from anything but that camera.
First being printed, so I can run up and get them in some as well.
I don't know how long it'll keep.
Better be a good presentation.
you and that one over there? You and that one over there. So, Josh.
Madam Chair, you may want to see.
That's what I've already said.
Right click, you know,
Right.
base and
Oh, yeah.
hit full screen and do something else. It'll tell you what piece of was left.
That one went from yellow to
But
green,
it's
that's
one little trick,
important.
you know, you
That
mess
one's still
around.
red, but
You don't do it.
He was glad to have you. Oh,
maybe green. Okay.
white.
Might be a little hole.
It
I
is.
saw
Just-
that once before.
Just,
Must be a moth or something.
oh, well, you need to get,
Okay.
and just
Do
The
good idea.
I'll do that, cause I noticed it too. I said, man, put that little.
Or maybe it'll be nobody.
There's no offices.
Well, it doesn't pay much. It does pay more than zero.
Yeah. That Haney thing is gonna be heard too. She didn't call it out.
No,
In fact,
we improved.
you're the ones that know which case we had. Is that 8 is the only one you?
Yes.
No, I think she's got it wrong.
Let me take it
The
off.
rejection, we listened. I get it.
Maybe the mayor would, yeah. That's. They're about 20. Yeah. It's really.
Falling apart. Tetra, y'all just tear it down, cancel that. Cause y'all be rushing out.
Well, no, actually, this room just, everything just stopped working right before. Projector went out right before I tested, before it burned.
I'll go get them.
Oh, there.
You need one hell of a ladder to get up there and fix it.
Yeah.
With that, look, cause I was like, can the camera rotate around?
The top,
They don't move.
I don't know, quarter is.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to make sure, there were several people still here. So the only item that we will be hearing today is item number 9, MJR 2258 on the agenda. So just wanted to make sure if you were here for another case, it may have been held on consent or approved on consent. But that's the only case we'll be hearing today, is item number 9.
I have a question.
Yes.
I got a letter here saying that the time and date be here for this particular case. So how would I know? I missed their work for this here. So how would I know that that's the one that you're talking about?
Well, I can tell you. So which case is it?
I have, I'm here for the last one, PR 22-01.
Well, it was approved on consent earlier, so that was what we went through and had the consent agenda.
So how could it be approved or, I'm new to this game here.
Okay, well, I can speak with you.
Are we talking? She's not my general. It's a plan revocation.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here for this case right here. Well, my question is, I thought, I got this letter, and I thought I could be here to reject.
It's like a general plan.
Yeah, right, and you would have to fill out a comment card,
Okay.
turn it in
This
before
was
they,
something up.
But they
approved it.
general plan, like.
Well, all that I got was just one letter here.
Yeah, so.
Right,
so
the letter is
so
so you can come.
the Tennessee Code annotated states that when you're doing something development-wise, that needs to go before a board, whether it be an appointed board like the Land Use Control Board or City Council or County Commission. We're required to send mailing notice to all properties that are within 500 feet of whatever change is being proposed. So for this particular case, let me double check on it here.
I just bought this land right here.
Yeah, so this land was part, this piece of land was part of what's called a plat, right?
Right.
So there. The other thing is,
Read it again. How do you want to do it?
you'd be in districts.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready to restart with number 9, and we're going to hear from the staff.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, for your patience. This is very sensitive microphone. All right, Brett Davis with the Division of Planning and Development. Good morning, and thanks again for waiting. This is case MJR 22-58. It is a correspondence case, a major modification to make several changes to the Oak Lawn Estates plan development, which was originally approved in 2004-5 by the City Council and County Commission. It's in unincorporated land and within Memphis's annexation reserve. The request is to increase the density of this residential development. More particularly, we're looking at the northern terminus of Roland Road, south of Grace Creek. This parcel is bisected by 2 creeks, and we'll take a closer look at that. It is owned by the Bank of Bartlett, who is also the developer of the property, represented by the illustrious Mr. Josh Whitehead today. The changes requested in particular, if you look at the requests, so we're on the general information sheet right now, are to increase the maximum number of permitted lots within the plan development as a whole from 176 to 200. That is about a 12% increase. Within this parcel itself, which is about 64 acres big, and this will be the 4th phase, if developed, of this plan development, the number of lots would double from 24 to 48, the number of lots that are allowed in this phase, because of the number of lots that have already been developed elsewhere in the PD. It's currently capped at 176 or 24 within this phase itself. Other changes include reducing the minimum lot size from 22,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet, decreasing the minimum lot width from 110 feet to 90 feet, and a few other changes, as well as an update to the conceptual site plan. Again, this parcel is 64 acres, and the underlying zoning is conservation agriculture and floodway. If you turn to the next slide, you'll see a vicinity map just showing you where in the county we're looking. This is not far south from Highway 64 in unincorporated Cordova. It's just over 3,000 feet to the east of Memphis city limits. If you turn to the next slide, you will see the approved conceptual site plan for this parcel dating to 2005. All of these lots are around 33,000 plus square feet, and you'll see that they're designed around a series of cul-de-sac. The next slide, which has the vicinity map, is particularly instructive because it shows us very clearly what surrounds the subject parcel. So you see to the south, centered around that traffic circle, is the first phase of this plan development, the first phases of this plan development. Those lots are also all around 30,000+ square feet. If you go and look at the bottom of that map, you'll see Birdstone Cove to the south. Those lots are 15,000 square feet. They're also within this plan development, and that is the proposed lot size for the subject parcels today. Just to give you an idea, those are about 2,600 feet to the south, and they're currently the closest lots of that size. Otherwise, besides this PD, it is mostly large lot housing, forest, and farmland in the area. The next slide shows you the surrounding zoning of this vicinity. So to the south is this PD that has been developed partially under the former approval, and the rest is conservation agriculture, as well as the floodway bisecting the northern portion of this site. The land use map largely reflects that. There's a large amount of undeveloped land, forested land out here, as well as some agricultural land and housing to the south. The next few slides are some environmental related maps submitted by the applicant that were not included in your staff report. The first of those shows a map of existing wetlands. So you see that about a third of this parcel is designated wetlands, largely along the western side of the parcel, the western third, approximately. The next slide shows you the creeks that run through and along this site. So there is one to the south in the middle of the parcel. If you look, you'll see that that stub of Roland Road would need to be extended as a bridge over that creek to access this site. Grays Creek also acts as the northern perimeter of the parcel, and other smaller water flow areas pass through the site as well. And the third of those maps, which has a lot of blue on it, is a map of the 100-year flood zone. And this map shows us that the site is almost entirely within the 100-year flood zone as currently designated by FEMA. I also included 3 photos submitted by the applicant that were not included in your staff report. Field Creek is the first of these. This is the creek that would need to be bridged to access the site. The second of these is the confluence of Field and Grays Creeks. And the third photograph is a map of a pond that exists on the eastern side of the site. After that, we've got the conceptual site plan. This shows what the applicant is currently proposing. It is an increase from 40 to 48 lots from the previous conceptual site plan. It also has a series of cul-de-sac around which these lots, which are predominantly around 15 to 20,000 square feet, would be located. This map is much more sensitive to the environmental constraints of the site than the previously approved conceptual site plan. So essentially all of the site, much of the site would be disturbed for the purposes of stormwater management on the western side where the existing wetlands are. The pond, which is a designated water of the state, would remain undisturbed, and the remainder of the land would be developed with housing. I did include the urban to rural transect in your staff report as well as your presentation. This is a key concept in smart growth, and it basically provides for a full range of housing choice within a metropolitan area, from maximum density in the downtown area to nature, with a full range in between. Staff finds that this land currently is within the rural zone, given the street network, the fact that it's unincorporated, surrounding land uses, and the environmental features of the site. And we believe that an increase, a doubling of the number of lots permitted on this parcel would push it towards the suburban type of zone. And we feel that given where we're trying to orient development today, it should remain rural. And that's really the core reason that we're recommending rejection. So as a rule, the city no longer accepts sewer connections to development outside of city limits. Because this development was approved before that policy change in 2017, the city will allow this development to tap into the city's sewer network. However, we feel that the requested increase in density compared to the original approval doesn't meet the spirit of that sewer policy. We find it doesn't meet the character of land in the vicinity, which is predominantly natural, agricultural, large lot housing. And the closest lots of this size are over 2,600 feet to the south. I'll also point out that the Department of Sustainability and Resilience has recommended rejection of this case as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the staff at this time? Okay, hearing none, we're ready for you, Mr. Whitehead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Josh Whitehead with Birch Porter Johnson. Mr. Skinner has some handouts that I'll be using to guide my presentation. But basically what we're asking for today is mirrors what we asked for and were approved for in 2014 for what that first map shows as phases 2 and 3. We're now looking at phase 4, where we're asking for essentially the same thing, to lower the lot size the minimum lot size, I should say, to 15,000 square feet. That ask in 2014 was favored by OPD and was voted in the favorable regard by this body. Thank you. The area of this PD, yes, sir. The area of the PD that we're now speaking of, this is on the north side of a creek called Phase 4. It was approved for development for 40 lots, if you turn to the next slide, by the County Commission and the City Council. This is back when the City Council had extraterritorial jurisdiction, so the resolution that approved Phase 4 for those 40 lots did go to both bodies. It was a joint resolution. In 2014, when we made the request to lower the lot size and increase the lot number for phases 2 and 3, there was no intention to lower our permitted number of lots in phase 4 from 40 to 24. I think in hindsight, it was probably just an oversight, and there was an expectation that we would come back to this body to make the same ask. This second slide that you see does show what Mr. Davis mentioned, that the proposal, although it's an increase in lots from 40 to 48, it does respect the property and the stormwater mitigation efforts that we are going to do, because this is in the floodplain, and we are increasing by 15% the amount of common open space, which will largely be the existing pond and future pond. The Bank of Bartlett has unwittingly and maybe accidentally become one of the largest developers in Shelby County. They had financed a lot of single-family developments before the Great Recession. And due to that fact, they have a keen understanding, perhaps more so than any other developer in Shelby County, of what the market can take. We came to OPD with the ask for 48 lots in a forthright way to negotiate. We did not start at 80 to land at 48. We started at 48 because we knew that is the exact number that would pay for the bridge that we have to build and pay for the other infrastructure that we have to accommodate for the stormwater mitigation. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to hand the floor over to Chris Willoughby. He is the Senior Vice President with the Bank of Bartlett, who can speak to some degree and briefly about their history of resuscitating a lot of developments in Shelby County. I think this would be number 10, if I'm correct.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chris Willoughby. I'm with Bank of Bartlett. And what I would love to talk to y'all about this morning is the fact that we did get this subdivision unwillingly around 2010 as the economy, as y'all know, kind of plummeted all over America, but it especially plummeted in our area with local real estate. We did have a development loan on this property. And so the developer stopped paying, and unfortunately, we had to take it back. And so our bank, our owners, said, you know, we have to fix these. We have to make these subdivisions right so that people will want to live there. And so we did that, and I was tasked with fixing a lot of them, managing a lot of them, and with W.H. Porter Engineers' help, we did that. And most of them are fixed, finished, and completely lived in now. Phase 1 is the one that we took back the whole subdivision, phases 1 through 4, but phase 1, we were told, was predominantly finished. I had never been out there, and when I was tasked to take these over, I went out there, and it was in terrible disrepair. You could not build a house out there. The roads were caved in. The lots had all kinds of rills, and they were just in terrible shape. So we spent even more money and more engineering and more time to get it back right. to where we could sell these lots to a local builder. And now 81 families live in phase one. 81 lots, 81 are sold, built, and again, the families live there. Y'all have approved phase 2 and 3, as was said a minute ago. We saw in phase 1, the previous owner had put a lot of 1 acre lots, and we heard over and over and over, we love the subdivision, we love the location, we hate the lot size. And so the builder kept telling us, get us a few smaller lots, make it to where people have a choice. Not everybody wants to mow a big yard. And so, along with, again, W.H. Porter's help with 2 and 3, we did that. We still have some big lots, but we have some smaller lots as well in 2 and 3. And again, we are about ready to kick that one off. Again, it's been approved by the city and county, and I believe we have a pre-construction meeting with the county engineers next week. So now our ask is, in trying to fix phase 4 and get it ready, we have a bridge to build across the creek, as was said a minute ago. We don't need to lose any lots because, again, a bridge is out of the norm for a subdivision, right? You don't normally build a bridge. You normally build some roads. You put in the infrastructure, and then you're done. Well, we got to build a bridge, and we knew that. When we took it over, we knew there was a big creek, and so to get over to that land to phase 4, we knew we were going to build a bridge. But so our ask is to keep it at that 48. That's about where we need to be in order to be able to pay for the bridge and all the infrastructure so these can be built and be desirable lots that can be sold. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, to wrap up, the last 2 pages in your handout that Mr. Lucas disseminated covers the 2 conditions that we mentioned that we've been negotiating for the last few days. The staff report recommendation came to us as a surprise because since our pre-application meeting on Halloween, we thought we were in Sepatico with staff, with previous approvals by this body and the City Council and the County Commission. So we've been trying to negotiate quickly in the last 48 hours, and the last 2 slides are a manifestation of that negotiation. The condition that we'd like to add to Roman numeral 4, a new paragraph G, states the area developed in phase 4 as lots and roads shall not exceed 30 acres. Okay, so that is a narrative requirement that what we show as our common open space will be the size of our common open space. Furthermore, a second sentence, no grading, tree removal, or other disturbance may be made in the area in phase 4 identified in the concept plan as a non-disturbance area. And that goes to this last slide that has the green buffer. Ladies and gentlemen, we promise we will not touch through the construction phase or thereafter the area identified in green on this map. What that means is the current buffers around this property and the current pond will be left alone through all construction phases. With that, Madam Chair, I'm available for any questions. Henry Porter is here with W.H. Porter. He is the designer of the subdivision, and we'd appreciate your favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any opposition to this? No? Okay. All right, is there any questions for Mr. Whitehead?
I don't live far from, and not close, but I do drive through the area a lot. Specifically, I take Pisgah as a cut-through instead of Houston Levee. And Grays Creek does come through and under Pisgah, where, it should be under Pisgah, but even in like a regular rain, the creek will come over and flood. And when there is significant rain, very often they have to close that section of the road. So I don't know, specifically this piece of property, but I know that creek can become a river really quickly. And in the amount and the kind of the force and the amount that builds up quickly is really something. So I see in the staff reports that, that it's in the floodplain, and, you know, in one of these slides, it shows the 100-year, you know, flood would completely cover this parcel. And, you know, just what we call 100-year floods, now you see happening, you know, yearly in certain places. So I can understand that, all right, this little section won't be touched and we're going to keep the pond. But, you know, what happens when that pond becomes a lake? You know, and then, you know, you're covering this parcel with a lot of impervious surface, so there's going to be more runoff. What is being done to really take all of these factors into account? Because I think that's a real issue.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Porter in a moment, but first I'd like to just remind the body that we are entitled to develop in that floodplain. The City Council and the County Commission entitled us to develop 40 lots. What we're doing is we are increasing the lots, but decreasing their size and increasing the amount of common space and area devoted to ponds. I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Porter because the way we are proposing those ponds, I think, will provide more storage in this area as the creek passes by than is currently permitted or currently taking place. So I believe our remediation efforts will lower the flow, at least the flow adjacent to our property. Mr. Porter.
All right, Henry Porter with WH Porter. So as Josh said, you know, we are entitled to be able to build within the floodplain. We're not entitled to build within the floodway. And basically what the floodway basically states is that it's a designated area that you have to maintain the main velocity of the channel of Grays Creek going through, and not necessarily the flood fringe, which is outside, which is like kind of the lower velocity flood area. And so we can raise that up. We'd have to apply to FEMA for that low MAR, but we can't touch anything within that floodway. Now, on the site, we are providing additional detention storage area to hold back any of the water that possibly in there. You know, we have an existing lake in there that we will ultimately use. Once the 100-year comes, you know, we'll raise that whole property except for what we've built. And so when we will raise that property up, we will apply for a low MAR to get all that area outside of the 100-year floodplain. And so, you know, frankly, like, since we're in that flood fringe area, it's going to have a de minimis effect on the flood. That's one reason why you go through that process of establishing floodplains and floodways. So it won't have a major effect in that area, but we will provide some additional area for that water to be able to be stored.
Can you describe the LOMAR process?
So the LOMAR process is, basically what it is that you do a hydraulic study potentially, and you apply to FEMA. And you go through a process of working with them to explain to them what you're raising up, the effect of the area that, you know, since they already have a floodway established, that we're not increasing the floodway at all, because that's not what we're allowed to do. That, you know, we will maintain the flood as it stands today. And it's about basically a 6-month process of review, and then a 6-month process over that of going through public notification. Once they've agreed with what you've done, then they will update the FEMA maps to account for your changes in the floodplain and floodway.
Are you satisfied?
I guess I just don't see how increasing the density wouldn't, even though you're allowed to develop in a certain area, to me, if you increase density, you're still increasing the impervious surface.
We do. That's why we'll put in detention basins. You know, so based on the 10-25-year storm, we're not going to increase it all because we're not allowed to by y'all's regulations.
And one final point, I'm just a simple Southern lawyer, is we are required to show that post-development runoff is less than pre-development runoff. So to the degree at which the post-development runoff is less than pre-development runoff is something that will be determined through the LOMAR, but it will be less. The water flowing by this property will be less due to the remediation efforts.
Well, I mean, y'all have detention requirements that we have to maintain. And y'all have requirements of what we can allow to run off on a local level. And that's what we're gonna keep with.
Okay. All right, any more questions? Any more questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, we're going to close the public portion of this meeting. Dr. Pritchard.
Yes, move approval of agenda item number 9, MJR 22-58CO.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none? Okay.
I'd like to hear from staff briefly again. What was your, can you take that real quick?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a few different grounds for a recommendation, but the most significant, in addition to concerns about flood zone, is that the increase in density moves this development closer to a suburb from a more large lot rural housing development. And we don't feel that that is appropriate anymore at this time, given the city's 2017 policy shift away from any new annexation.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. You want to take a individual vote? Okay.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
No.
Vice Chair Laz Wallace?
Yes.
Chair Sharp?
Yes,
Motion carries.
motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Happy
Same
holidays.
to you. Is there anything else that we need to discuss today?
No, ma'am, I think that's all we have, except for we're going to enjoy a little holiday gathering after this, so.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah. That's what